Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamie Wood. I'm the Environmental Sustainability Director for the City of Carlsbad, and I'm here with Avecita Jones. And we are doing some work to bring policy into what we're doing. The City of Carlsbad has had preservation of our natural resources as a priority for many years. The city adopted the environmental guiding principles and sustainability guiding principles many years ago to help really protect and to drive protection of our natural resources. We have 7 miles of beach, we have 3 lagoons, and we have a habitat management program that preserves about 40% of the acres in Carlsbad for open space. Through these 2 documents, there's two items that are specific to what we're talking about today. One is for waste reduction and recycling, and the other is to develop city policies that guide protective approaches to sustainability. And that's really what we did as we were looking at our program for solid waste. We knew we had been fairly reactive to new regulations, to new laws that were coming towards the city, and we had a few things that were happening at the City of Carlsbad. We had a contract that was ending for our waste hauler. We had all of the new organics regulations that you all are aware of, and then we were getting a lot of public input and our new council that was supportive of environmental and sustainability issues and really pushing us to do more. So we worked with a consultant to develop what we called a sustainable materials management plan. We really wanted to look at a systems approach, not just look at an outcome, but figure out what our city could do to create change. So this plan really had 3 components. First was compliance with all the current solid waste regulations. This was done in 2018, 2019, so before the organics SB 1383 was in place. And we really wanted to just make sure there were no gaps, make sure we weren't missing anything from previous compliance regulations. Our second component was to really focus on SB 1383 and organics and look at what we needed to do to comply. And then our final component was to establish sustainable materials management systems throughout the city of Carlsbad. Phase 1 was pretty easy. We were doing an okay job with the stuff that had been around for a little while. But then we got to phase 2. We went to council and we explained to them that we were getting a new waste hauler. We were doing a request for a proposal for a new waste hauler. But that was only going to go so far with SB 1383. There were a lot of requirements that would not be handled by the waste hauler, and this has included the edible food recovery program, outreach, education, procurement, capacity, monitoring, enforcement, as well as record keeping and reporting. So we needed help to do that in-house. We also went to council and explained to them that we needed to, as a city, develop programs to meet the state mandate for 1383. We needed to work with our businesses and our residents and explain to them what this meant. We needed to get out and educate and do outreach. We needed to monitor and find out what was working and what wasn't working and adjust as we got that data. And then we needed to report all of the requirements, the new requirements that were included in 1383, and we needed resources to do it. So that was our phase 2 of the Sustainable Materials Management Plan. And then looking at phase 3, which was establishing systems throughout Carlsbad, we started with public input. We went out to our businesses, we went out to our residents, allowed them to provide input and tell us what they were interested in. What were they looking for? What did they want us to do? We worked for them. We came up with, based on that input, as well as what other cities were doing, what other places, other jurisdictions were doing, and we came up with a list of sustainability initiatives. And we presented these to council, and council chose 4 for us to do some research on and to bring back to them, including cost-benefit analysis for these 4 initiatives. And through all of that work, we came up with our Sustainable Materials Management Implementation Plan. And we just like to make really long words into titles, so it was really hard to say at council over and over and over, and try not to say and use acronyms. But we presented to council that the importance of this implementation plan was to reduce marine pollution and reduce plastics in our environment, to increase the city's cleanliness, to stimulate local economy. We're a tourist city, and we don't want to have pollutants and litter all over our city, and then also reduce cleanup for that litter. We presented to council this plan that had 4 parts to it. The first was the department action plan. So in our municipal programs, every department, we went through and gave individual department plans. These action plans told them what they needed to do to comply with all of the state laws, including organics, including the previous laws and the initiatives that we were posing from council. The second part was just the compilation of all of our stakeholder input, everything that we had received. The third, policy development, which I'll speak to in just a moment. And then the public education, outreach, and technical assistance component, which Avecita will speak to in a few minutes. So looking at our initiatives, the four that were chosen by council were a ban of single-use plastic foodware, beverage bottle bans for all city facilities and any city-affiliated events, a balloon release ban throughout the city, and plastic bag bans throughout the city. And what we provided to council in this document was really a sort of our way of summarizing the best that we could who this would impact. So who was impacted from each of these bans or these policies, what the policy would be, what the benefits of those would be. So as well as we could, providing how much would be removed from the landfill, how much greenhouse gas would be reduced by taking these out of the waste stream, and then the resources that were needed for this, the cost, including employees, the full-time equivalents that we needed to implement this. We also provided a timeline, as detailed as we could. Our goal in Carlsbad has always been education first, not enforcement. So we really wanted to have sort of a phased-in approach for enforcement. A lot of what we did was basically give a year of implementation to get the outreach materials out, to meet with all of the businesses, everyone that's involved, and then work for enforcement later, because we feel like we'll get a better participation using education instead of enforcement. And then finally, each of these sustainability initiatives came with a roadmap, a detailed plan for how we would get there. So it started with drafting ordinances, having those ordinances approved by council, then the rollout, the education and implementation, and then the phased-in enforcement, and then all of the ongoing activities that continued after that. So Avecita is going to come up now and talk a little bit about what that implementation and those education components are. Thank you.
When we heard that this year's Zero Waste Symposium was about global overview and local action, we knew we had to be here. Carlsbad took action in 2021 when Council approved the SMMIP Jamie just discussed. During the 2022, we took action by adopting 4 new ordinances, developing an outreach plan that was inclusive of all types of audiences, and implementing our very first formal waste hauler transition. That was a monumental work, just the transition. And of course, providing customer service to the community through all these changes. So what did that mean? Change makers of the world are passionate about their communities, but helping others ignite their passion. And sustained improvements requires above average outreach practices, right? So sparking action in communities such as Carlsbad encourages advocate for community engagement, which now we understand to be one of our roles. Outreach is a vehicle for community engagement that can be used for many purposes. So the residential outreach, some of our residential outreach activities included participation in events, providing literature like brochures, materials, and giveaway items, marketing the initiatives. We wanted to empower our community to adopt these bans and these environmental friendly practices. So we also discussed the single-use plastic bans and initiatives with internal and external stakeholders. During our special events process and committee, we make sure we had a voice. Community engagement is the process of building relationships with community members and who will work side by side with us, our department, as an ongoing partner. Building an army of support from our mission and our bans with the end goal of making Carlsbad a better place to live. So for this reason, we focus on targeting the message and the audience. We were flexible to change this message if we needed, and we were available to answer any questions. So The initial, overall for the initial thoughts on our business visits, I'm gonna give you an example, is overall this was a very brand new process for our staff who had just hired 6 new staff members. So we develop our outreach activities with one fundamental principle: relationships. Building relationships is the first and most important step. Staff were assigned business accounts that they owned, and they visited every business in the city. So for those of us that participate in outreach, you know that that was a monumental task. I am proud to discuss our one-on-one visits outreach process, since we had a lot of information to share: new hauler, new initiatives, new bands. So, and staff, I want to congratulate our staff, worked tirelessly to get them done, all those visits. So we developed an approach that was business-friendly, as Jamie mentioned earlier, and we made sure that we knew what we were going to do during our visits. This checklist allowed staff to be consistent with all the business visits. We planned what we were going to say during the visits, and it was a lot of information to share. Those of us that have been with businesses, we know they have a lot of questions. They have very limited time, so we had to make that quick, and we needed to make it very effective. So therefore, we needed to make our visit clear, concise, and to the point. Overall, our end goal was clear: a call for action. These visits were important, and documenting the results was important too, but it took time. We learned that this step took more time than we had allotted. So, however, they provided opportunities to connect with the hauler and report the outreach provided to the businesses. The outreach provided to all businesses was standardized for reporting purposes by labeling enclosures, identifying out-of-compliance issues, and highlighting best practices or recommending solutions. Also, we learned that businesses were trusting us to follow up. We sent an email with recommendations, make sure we answer questions, and forwarded any additional information requested. Also, I think a step that was very critical is that we followed up with our new hauler to make sure that things did not get forgotten. Implementing these initiatives has been a rigorous process for us to follow, but we are happy to report that Carlsbad is taking action by empowering our community. Thank you so much.